Hello and welcome to another game. We are going to play on ChessUp as usual, ChessUp 2. I believe this is episode 29. Let's see how are we going to play and what pieces we are going to get. So we are playing white pieces and we are going to start with the Botvinnik System. Facing the e5 setup, so kind of reverse Sicilian when you think about it. Black is going for the d5 push, which is fine. Now feeling like we might want to allow that and just simply maybe let black capture on c4. Or we can also play with the idea of setting up something against the pawn chain, pawn structure. So now it's the interesting moment. We can play b3, we can play d3, bishop g2, I'm not sure is that strong. Taking on d5 might be a little problematic, because we don't want to allow strong center, even though we have actually allowed it with this move order. But one of my main move, I prefer probably still to play bishop g2, and if d takes c4, then we can play a4 and keep on developing. So I believe we are going to sacrifice the pawn on c4. So black is obviously not allowing this to happen. So now the question is, one of the moves that I like is queen b3. One of the moves that could be useful is a b3 pawn. d3, I'm not so sure about the resulting endgame after dc4, dc4. And c takes d5, I still don't want to allow. Even though queen b3, there is already a nice possibility to try and put pressure on a d5. And I believe that's something we want to try just for once. So let's see how black is going to react. We are now aiming 3 times on the d4 square, and black will need to do something about it. Pushing the pawn to d4 could be actually quite good for us, as we might have a really strong pressure for this bishop. So in general, asking this question might be really good from our perspective. Also, we might be capturing in some cases on b7 if bishop e6 it was to be played. So overall, I'm really happy with this situation, with this position. If black pushes to d4, we have knight to d5 jump. And if trade, then we're putting enormous pressure on the f7, on the b7 as well. So some move like queen c7 or queen e7 might come. Queen c7 probably. And if d4, knight d5, bishop e6 pinning our queen, then we can take on f6. If the queen captures back on f6, then queen takes b7 will be crashing. So we are playing against Caesar, 1801. They are from India. The rating is 1334. Our rating is 1369, which is strange. So black is playing move e4. So I just think that we can simply continue by putting pressure on the white on their center. And the idea here is to open up with a d3. As black is a little bit overextended in the center. So as you can see, I have developed 3 pieces that are putting lots of pressure on the center, either this way or the other way. And black is playing a move that seems to want to prevent the move bishop g5, but completely forgets about the pawn on e4, which we can now win. The only question is, if we take on e4 and black pushes to d4, if move like knight d5 is useful, but it looks like it's gonna be absolutely fine. Can also explore some bishop moves. But for now it feels like winning the pawn on e4 is the way to go. As it will open up the bishop eventually, so something I want to do. I'm also thinking if I take on e4 and a d4 comes, then I can counterattack maybe with the move e5. And if takes, maybe queen takes f6, then we can always play b takes c3 back. But we can also just simply develop the knight and keep on the pressure on b7. Maybe in this case actually we are opening this bishop, so bishop b7 again will be a big threat for black. So I think taking on e4 is the correct move here. So just simply by letting black expand in the center, however they only made the pawn moves whilst we made the bishop and knight move, so we put lots of pressure on the center and we already won a pawn by black playing a move that didn't seem to solve any problems in their position. If they were to take here, I would take first with the knight on d5. So I'm actually quite surprised we are still 1369. Maybe you have noticed I tried to do some editing to my videos, although I must admit that it's very time consuming and I don't know if I can keep it up together with my job, but bear with me. So we are going with what we basically agreed with ourselves. So we are going to counterattack the knight with e5, opening the bishop. I also believe, as we have the dark square bishop, that any check with queen a5 is not going to be working. Bishop b4 we have already protected with our queen, so I believe there's no tactical possibilities for black. And this simple threat of bishop takes b7 needs to be taken seriously in the resulting lines, so we might get actually quite a good position. And so far we are actually pawn up, so even if we lose pawn in this exchange in the center, it could be still quite good for us. And sometimes positions like this, they require the time. And I can see also one of the possibilities for us might be, so knight to g4 happens. That's actually quite an interesting move. That's a move that I did not consider. So we need to look into this a bit more seriously. Although, let's be honest, it feels like playing a move like bishop b7 might be is looking quite strong from here. So if we play bishop b7, it's bishop b7, bishop b7, queen b7, knight to d7, knight to d5, rook c8, knight to f3. This looks kind of interesting for us. And again, this is not purely a greed. I just feel like moving our knight is not the best way to proceed. Bishop b7, bishop e6. We could play there knight to d5. We are going to go with this line, even though it requires probably a little bit more calculation, but right now we have 2 pawns, and it seems like black either did their calculation or did not, I'm not sure. But they are capturing quickly on b7. I believe bishop e6 was a better move to hit the queen and then get the knight out of the way. So as knight to d7 happened, a move like knight b5 starting to look interesting, but black can play still rook to b8, so we need to consider that. But knight c7 check, king has to go to e7. We don't have good enough moves to hold the pace together, so I believe to plant the knight on d5 looks the most reasonable. But again, we need to be careful of some potential discoveries. This actually doesn't look all that great for us right now. Potentially I can throw in between move with pawn to e6. But what is that gonna do to one of the moves worth considering could be also queen to e4. If knight b5, rook b8, knight c7, king e7. And then queen a7, queen a4 would be a potentially a threat. If knight e5, rook c8, or rook b8, knight c7, and queen to a7. Black will have a bishop b4 check. No, he will not have a bishop b4 check. We are going to go ahead again with our pieces. Knight d5, we need to be careful of queen a5. But at the moment doesn't seem to work as we have bishop d2. We're going to go ahead, even though this piece might be potentially unprotected. It still could be worth trying to dislodge this king, remove their castling, prevent this bishop from moving out. These could be the possibilities that can, in theory, win us the game. We obviously want to finish development and castle as soon as possible, but at the same time we want to keep the pressure on black pieces. We have also a big threat right now to take, just simply to take queen takes on a8, and then winning the queen with the check with knight c7 takes a8. And that could win us the game as we already are 2 pawns up. And black will have to waste some time to try and recapture the knight in the corner. So black has to play rook b8 or rook c8 moves. Because knight c7 is a big threat. Queen a5, bishop d2, bishop b4, we can capture 2 different ways. So it's the rook that has to move. I don't see any alternative to that. So our single threat is just to take the rook in a corner and win it back with a check and the pin. So again, Botvinnik strikes quite early with some pressure in the center. But if we are honest, like it was more like a Sicilian reversed in a sense. Some sort of alapin, you may say. So knight takes on e5. So black is recapturing 1 piece. We can also probably, and this looks better than just capturing here with the queen, which should be winning on its own. But the better solution might be to actually capture, play knight c7 and then capture the rook with the knight. This will also, as the queen is here and the king will be here, this will paralyze this knight and this bishop. So losing the castling is much better than just simply taking on a8 and trading the queen. So we are going to play knight c7. And as I said, black had to play one of these 2 rook moves. could have thrown in a check first, but they had to definitely move the rook. Potentially, actually, another move that they had, oh no, they didn't have a bishop d6 because there was a pawn here. A white pawn, that is. So now there's very little that black can do to save themselves. They will also, you know, once the king goes here, the queen will not be able to get into the game here. Like, for example, queen e7 would be a big threat with some knight d3, knight f3 jumps. So that would make this knight difficult to develop. And we have 5 minutes left. Our opponent has 8 minutes left. And yeah, it looks like the game is over. And hopefully they won't let us to sit here for 8 minutes without any response. If the pawn was still sitting on e5, then much better move after king e7 than capturing on a8 would be to actually play queen b4 check, as that would keep the king in a checkmating net, as the knight controls these squares and pawn controlled these squares. So after queen b4, the only defensive move would be knight c5. We capture, and then black would have a move like king d7, but yeah, knight takes a8 still. Oh, I see. That would actually be more difficult because our queen would be hit, our knight would be hit. So we would have to come up with some precise move there. So queen b4 is probably not the best move. However, our opponent has resigned in the light of king e7 and knight takes a8, which would render their position basically hopeless, as there's like really difficult way to stir any counter attack for them. Maybe they can try move queen a5, but bishop b2. And now it's difficult even to find a placement for the queen, because here they will be captured by my queen. Here they are captured by my knight. So move like queen c5 is okay maybe, but then we have rook to c1, activating the rook as well for free. So there's very little black can do here, and they're down a rook and a pawn. So I hope you enjoyed this rather short game in episode 29, and I will see you in the next one. Just set up the pieces. I've been also thinking, you know, both of the series with the white systems and black are slowly going to an end, so hopefully I'll be able to come up with something new. And yeah, until next time, see you.